Welcome back to the Kiwi Wedding Podcast. My name is Lydia and I am your host and a wedding photographer at Lydia Rachel Photography. Guys, I can't believe it is December already. We are full force into wedding season, which is so much fun, slightly chaotic, but always a good time. And right into Christmas as well. And it's also nearly engagement season. If you didn't already know, people tend to get engaged around the Christmas and summer holiday season. So maybe you're even listening to this and expecting a little ring on your finger soon. So excited. And just a reminder to send the podcast to your newly engaged friends. I would be so grateful. And yeah, I hope it can help them on their journey. I don't often ask for it, but I would love to see where you're listening from. Share it to your Instagram story or leave a 5-star review and let me know what you think of the podcast as well. Always love to hear from you, what you want to see more, and yeah, excited for the rest of the year and 2025. Gosh, that has come around quick. On today's episode, I'm sharing my chat with the lovely Annie. She is an absolute delight. She was married in Auckland earlier this year and had a beautiful, classic, timeless style wedding photographed by the amazing Danelle Bohane. We chat through her whole love story and wedding planning process. Annie has so many amazing tips and some great advice on looking after yourself during this season and making the whole process as stress-free and relaxing as possible. Annie, along with her friend Sophie, has also created an incredible business called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, which you will hear all about in this episode, and I think is just going to be an incredible tool to use on your planning journey. We did record this a little while ago and it hasn't quite launched yet, but you can go and follow them on Instagram at Don't Sweat the Small Stuff ___ and click the link there to join the waitlist. You will definitely want to know about this as soon as it launches, and I'll pop all those details in the show notes and on our Instagram too. I'm sure you will fall in love with Annie as I did and get a lot out of this chat. So let's get into it. Enjoy episode 74 with Annie. Hi Annie, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. So excited to chat to you all about your wedding and exciting new business.
Oh, thank you so much, Lydia. It's such a joy to be on the podcast after listening religiously every Tuesday morning to the podcast as soon as it came out. So thank you so much for having me.
After it's been going for a while, it's kind of making a difference in talking to brides that listen to it. So lovely. To get started with, if you could just tell me a bit about you and your partner, how you guys met and your life together.
So James and I met thanks to our beautiful friend Sarah. I was actually flatting with Sarah at the time, and James was in a similar friend group to her. And one day, we were in a girls' flat, so everyone was always on the eye out for someone for each other. And she just came home one day and said, I think you should go on a date with James McArthur. So I thought, oh, okay, well, I've got nothing to lose. So I did a wee Facebook stalk and thought, oh, yeah, he looks all right, as you do. And she went off and had a shower and came back and she said, well, what are you going to say, Annie? And I said, oh, I've already sent him a message. So I sent him a message and just said, hey, I know your friend Sarah, do you want to go on a date? And then he was actually at the time climbing Mount Aspiring down in the South Island. So we texted and messaged for a few weeks. And then, yeah, he came back up to Auckland. We had our first date and that's kind of where it started. And I think, yeah, on that first date, I never thought I would say or feel this, but I just had this little inkling that he might be the one. And then the rest is history, really.
So good. Like little blind date kind of through friends introduction. I love that.
Absolutely. It's so great. So yeah, anyone that wants to set people up, I'm a big fan of.
Yes, so good. Your friends know you best, I feel like, as well. The ones you can trust for sure.
Exactly.
You ended up dating for a while and then got engaged. Can you tell us a bit about your proposal story?
Yeah, absolutely. So we met up in Auckland, but we now live in Lake Hawea. And we honestly just had the sweetest proposal. I always wanted just a really simple, organic proposal. I didn't want any flower archways, no hundreds of candles, nothing like that, no photographer. I just wanted it to be us and for it to just be really simple. And so we had talked about getting married and knew that that was on the cards. And then one day I got home, I was actually on a first aid course at work, and got home, and James said, "Oh, should we go have a cup of tea by the lake?" Which was nothing abnormal for us, so I didn't think too much of it. And I don't know, I was just kind of fluffing around. And he was like, "Oh, I think we should go before the sun goes behind the hills and it gets a bit shady." And I said, "Oh, do we still want to go?" He was like quite adamant. I was like, "Oh, okay." But didn't really think too much of it because he was acting so chill. Um, and then, so I was like, okay, so we jumped in the car and headed down towards the lake. He sussed the cup of tea in a backpack, and he was wearing shorts and a puffer jacket. And I said, "Oh, James, do you want to pop some pants on? You might be a bit cold." And he was like, "Oh, no, 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 I'm just toughening up to the being in Central Otago because we were relatively new to the area." So again, he was acting quite chill. So I kind of did wonder. I was like, "Oh, could this be the proposal? I don't know." But I didn't think much of it. So I just put my gumboots on and off we went. And we headed down to the lake to this beautiful bench under this big, beautiful old tree that's right on the lakefront. And it was the most pristine day. And we just were sitting there chatting. It was real low key, cup of tea. And then yeah, he got down on one knee and asked if, yeah, I wanted to marry him. And it was an absolutely yes. And it was just so perfect and so us. And I think we actually went back home and just had the sausages and salad that we'd already prepped for dinner. It was nothing fancy. I think we may have had like a bottle of wine or something. But yeah, it was honestly just magic, and I couldn't have asked for better.
Oh, I love that. So special, just celebrating just the two of you and yeah, a bit of the surprise factor there. Had you always been one of those girls that dreamed about your wedding? Did you have like a vision in mind and style of what you wanted? And yeah, how did that go with your first steps, finding a venue, all of that?
Always dreamt of being married. I think just one of the most beautiful things in the world is to love and be loved. And I think that's something that I'd always really held on to. Um, but in terms of the style of the wedding, that definitely, I wasn't set on anything specific. I was quite open. And it's funny, I look at my Pinterest board from the last 15 years, and it's really changed from full boho to, really colourful to then really timeless. So I think as I've got older, or I've been to lots of different weddings, the style has changed. Um, but yeah, in terms of the wedding, I really wanted something classic. I think I love the kind of timeless look. And so that was really important to me. And so, yeah, in terms of the wedding, I was pretty open about what it looked like, but there was one thing that I was pretty dead set on, and that was the photographer. So I absolutely adore Danelle Bohane. I'd looked at her work since I was a teenager. My dad's a photographer, so they'd been in competitions years ago. And so I was pretty happy to elope if I had to have Danelle. And so actually, it was funny in terms of choosing a venue. We actually did things a little bit different from the norm, but I think that there actually isn't a norm. I think the beautiful thing about a wedding is you do get to do what you want to. And so we got married in March this year, and about halfway through last year, we decided that we'd get married. And that summer, we were quite keen on. And so I thought, oh, I'm pretty happy organising a wedding in a few months. I felt pretty confident to be able to do that. But I knew that someone like Danelle is pretty highly sought after, and I couldn't get. And so before we were actually engaged, I contacted Danelle just to see what her availability was for that summer. And she emailed me back with two dates. And so I said to James, I said, "Okay, I know we're not engaged, but if we want to get married this summer, it's going to be the 10th of February or the 16th of March if we want Danelle. Otherwise, we might have to wait another year." And so that's not very normal, probably, but it's actually, people booking things before they're engaged. But I actually learned that it's more common than you think, because venues do book out and photographers a year, 2 years in advance. And so we agreed that, yeah, let's just lock in those important things, the venues and the photographer, so that we could have the wedding that we dreamed of. And then we were traveling overseas at the time. So once we kind of came home and we moved cities, then we would get engaged. And so, in terms of choosing a venue, I wanted something really beautiful and classic. We knew we had to get married in Auckland. We had three beautiful grandparents in their 90s, so they're a little bit hard to move up and down the country. So it was really important that we had it up in Auckland. And I think a really good point to note is if you do want a wedding in one of those kind of wedding destination places, Auckland, Waiheke, your Queenstowns, people are booking a year or 2 years in advance. And if you've got more than 50 people, it can be quite challenging. So for us, it was really important. We got married on a Saturday. I didn't really want people taking lots of days of annual leave, and we knew we'd have lots of people flying in from all over the country and the world. So to find a Saturday with 9 months' notice in Auckland that would fit about 120 people is actually a bigger task than you think. I actually was really surprised. And I was trying to match two specific Saturdays that Danelle would give me. So I guess I did make it harder for myself. Yeah, I started looking all over Waiheke in Auckland and was struggling to find a venue. So I actually asked Danelle, who had the style of wedding that I wanted, that beautiful, romantic, whimsical, timeless. And I just said to her, what are some of your favourite venues in Auckland to photograph? And so she gave me a big list, which was absolutely amazing. And I just rang them all up, which is another top tip. Sometimes it's easier to get on the phone than emailing people because they're really busy during that wedding season, and you just get a quicker response and that personal connection before you lock something in. And so, yeah, we landed on St Matthew's in the city, a big, beautiful architectural church that Danelle had recommended, and the Northern Club, which were two beautiful architectural spaces, which was really important to me. I love architecture and design. And yeah, so we actually locked those in along with Danelle before the wedding. And so that's kind of how the vibe ended up. It was like, okay, right, now we've got two pretty formal spaces and let's roll with that as the theme. So wasn't stuck on anything prior, but knew I wanted something classic and beautiful. And so I think, yeah, that's kind of how we landed on it, and we couldn't have been happier. Dimitri and at St Matthew's in the city and Sue, the event coordinator at the Northern Club, were absolutely world class, and they were just so beautiful and calm, and they just made everything run smoothly. No question was ever too small, and I had plenty of questions because I was planning relatively remotely. And so, yeah, that's kind of how we landed on it. So I think my advice to people was if you are thinking of a venue, think about what priorities you have. For me, it was important to have indoor weddings because I get sunburnt in the middle of winter, and I just didn't want the stress of it raining on the day and having to change that plan. So think about those things when you are choosing a venue. Like I just ruled out all outdoor options personally because of the things that were important to me. And yeah, I think just think about those things. Do you want DIY? Do you want someone to do all the planning? Do you want a big wedding? What does that space look like? What does that cost look like? Or do you want a beautiful, small, intimate backyard wedding or an elopement with a big party? There's so much to choose. But I think those questions are really important to answer while you're thinking about what venue.
So good. They're beautiful venues, both of them that you chose. And it's really interesting to hear that sort of journey to finding them. And then, yeah, like you say, it is like more common than you think that people inquire about a few things before getting engaged, especially if your
Totally.
engagement is going to be like under a year. And yeah, in those key locations in a Saturday, especially. So I love that you did that. No shame in it. And now is amazing. So, yeah, if you have like
Totally.
a super important vendor that you're set on, then that might be your first port of call to like see their availability and work around that. But yeah, some great advice there. And you've mentioned a few things already, but what were the most sort of important elements of the day for you, your sort of top priorities?
Well, as I mentioned, I would have eloped for Danelle, so the
Yeah.
photography was a high priority. I think
Mm.
it sometimes can be overlooked a little bit. You know, people might be like, oh, I don't know if I really want someone just following me around with a camera all day. But you do, the day just goes so fast, and it's so beautiful to have those moments captured and to be able to look back on it and relive it. So yeah, I would highly recommend, if that's something that you do want, to choose wisely and choose a style of wedding photographer that you love as well. So the photographer was really important. We're big foodies. So it was really important to both James and I that we had delicious food, plenty of it, no one left hungry. So the Northern Club provided all of that. And then we had one of my dear friends, Sarah, who has actually just sold the business, but was running Sage and Grace cakes in Tauranga, and she makes the most divine cakes. And so she made the most beautiful, big, gluten-free, dairy-free, everything-free cake. We had a lot of people with dietary requirements. And so, yeah, so food was a biggie for us. And then also, my other big priority was that everyone on the day felt really loved and really valued. I think we're probably over half the people that guests at our wedding traveling from around the country or overseas, which is a massive time spent and expense. And I just really wanted them to feel valued, that we prioritized, the effort that they had made. So I think something that I would advise is, and also you always have people helping you on the day, whether it's your vendors or your mum or friends helping MC. And I think really leading everything with kindness makes people feel valued. So, when you're emailing your vendors, before you ask them all your questions, just be like, thanks so much, give them some gratitude, hype them up, be like, you're amazing, we can't wait to have you. Just so that they feel valued and on your team. Because you'll know, Lydia, the wedding season as a vendor is full noise. And they really run off their feet. So I think, all those little things, I'm a big fan of etiquette and thank yous. And so probably my biggest advice leading into, yeah, anyone leading into planning their wedding is, do prioritize and value those people that are helping you to make your day happen, because it's a lot of effort and they will enjoy it so much more if, the person that's handing out your order of services opens the box and there's just like a small note that says, thanks so much, Christabel, for doing this. Really appreciate it. Or, you hand out to your celebrant a bottle of wine the night before, or your musicians that are playing, send them some tea in the mail or something, and just lead everything with a thank you. So I think, yeah, that was really important to me, was how could we make everyone feel valued, enjoy the day, not have too many jobs. I really didn't want people just run off their feet all day who were guests. And then anyone that did have a job, that they were really thanked and valued. And so, yeah, those were kind of my priorities for the day: photographer, food, and thank yous.
Oh, you would have been the best client to have. So
Yeah.
lovely. And yeah, even I know from our exchange of emails, you're so lovely to deal with. And I think that's an important thing to remember. And it's how I try to live my life as well, just like leading with kindness. So yeah, it just makes everybody's life and jobs more easy, and yeah, feeling like valued, and yeah, being grateful for everyone that's helping you. That's amazing advice. And can you tell me a bit about your wedding outfits, your dress, finding it, getting it made? How was that whole process?
Yeah, funny with a wedding dress. I probably did quite different from what most people did. I really wanted something that was timeless and beautiful, and that I just felt comfortable in all day. And when I first started looking at dresses, there was just so many styles that I would have loved. From a slinky little dress, slip dress, to like the big puff sleeves, bows, full noise. And I think ideally I would have changed 10 times and just had 10 different 10 different dresses, but knew that that wasn't a reality and it was not in our budget. And so living down in Lake Hawea, I'm quite limited for choices in terms of dress shopping, not like Auckland where, they're on every second street. And so after doing a bit of online searching, I just couldn't really find one style that I loved. And so I actually just decided one day to sit down and just draw what I wanted. So draw different items like tops that I love wearing. So I wear quite a bit of puff sleeves. I wear a bit higher necks. I love a low back. And I could just kind of drew out different aspects of a dress that I loved. And then mum actually found a dressmaker in Clyde, of all places, so about an hour down the road from us. And I just took it to Jamie at Margaret Ray Bridal. And I just said, these are some of my drawings. I'd kind of got pictures off Pinterest to be like, I like these sleeves. I don't like this, like that, don't like that. And I was like, do you think that this is something you could make? And so she was like, absolutely. And so I never tried on any wedding dresses. And I just, yeah, took that to her. She was a dream to work with. She made a mock up in a bright pink sort of fabric. And then we just adjusted a few things. And then the night before I flew up to Auckland, before the week of our wedding, I went and picked it up and it was just perfect. And it just felt so me because it was just so similar to things that I would wear, this sort of style. And so yeah, that was the wedding dress. And then James, we wanted to suss all the outfits for the boys. And so we went to Rembrandt in Auckland and just hired them. And yeah, it just worked an absolute treat. So yeah, the wedding outfits were actually one of the easiest parts of the wedding for us.
I love hearing about that process and the yeah way that you did it, just like pulling all those elements that kind of what styles you like, and then yeah, creating something really bespoke. That's so lovely to do that. And did you have a bridal party as well? And if so, how was that process choosing them?
We definitely wanted a bridal party just to have people the morning of to get ready with, and some of our dearest people just be with us on that day. So that was really important. We decided to have four people. James has two brothers that he really wanted and two amazing, close and loyal friends. So we just decided on the number four. And I'd always thought about it, just as other friends have got married and I'd been a bridesmaid who I might have. And I was pretty set on having three of my longest girlfriends that I'd had since we all went to each other's third birthday parties. And so that was really special to me. And then in recent years, yeah, my beautiful friend Kelly, I just knew that I really wanted her as a bridesmaid. We'd been friends probably 7 or 8 years, but it felt like a lifetime. And so it was a relatively easy choice. I think I have lots of beautiful girlfriends that I could have had up there, and but realistically, you've got to make a choice. And so I think when we knew the number, it was like, okay, right, let's choose four people that are really special to us. I think when you've been friends with girls for over 27 years, they're probably going to be there for the long haul. And so it was just really special, to have them and all their parents at the wedding as well. Yeah, I think it was relatively easy. And I think the key is just remembering when you're choosing them, it's sometimes hard because you want to have 20 people up there. And but I just went in with the mindset that this is no reflection of who's my best friends. There's no ranking. I don't really have best friends. There's no ranking in my friend group. That these are just four girls in this moment of time that I really would love up there. I could have had four completely different ones, but these ones would be really special. And yeah, I think again, just be gentle in the process when you're choosing people, because I'd been a bridesmaid for people that weren't bridesmaids for me. And I can imagine that can sometimes be maybe a little bit hard. But you've just got to make these decisions and again, make everyone feel valued on the day, whether they're a bridesmaid or a guest.
Yeah, that's great advice. Absolutely. And how about your guest list? How many guests did you have, and did you find that difficult to narrow down?
Yeah, great question. Again, it was relatively similar. Ideally, I would have just invited everyone I knew and had this massive big party. But the reality is, weddings are expensive and every head does come with a cost. And So on when we decided on the venue, we knew about 120 people would be we could manage with that. And so how we actually went about it was we did a big spreadsheet, both James and I, and it had different columns: your immediate family, extended family, friends, family, friends, and then like question mark, which sounds terrible, but and then we just listed all the people under that. And then we thought, okay, well, now we are 40 people over, so what are we going to do? Maybe we don't invite all the cousins. Or, okay, our parents, as much as we would have adored to have all their friends there, it was like, okay, right, you can have 3 or 4 friends each. And then just going about making, and it was hard, you do want everyone and you want everyone to feel included. But the reality is, I think if you stop and think, like, would I take this person out for a $300 meal? Because the costs per head do add up. Then you've kind of got to think a bit like that and be a bit objective about it. And so we made a rule that if we didn't know a friend's partner or they were relatively new, that we wouldn't invite them. There's people that I really wanted to be there, and we didn't really want Jim's girlfriend of 2 weeks, turning up in replacement of like one of our really good long term family friends. So I think that, yeah, again, you've just got to make a big list of everyone you want and then just sift out and go, who are these people? And can I see them in my life going forward? What do they mean to me in this time and place? And be kind. Your parents want everyone they know to be there. And so, but it does, at the end of the day, it is up to you. Yeah, that was kind of how we chose. And then we landed on 120, which was the max the Northern Club could have for us. So that kind of made it a bit easier to try and fit into that bracket.
Yeah, nice. Sometimes it's helpful having those parameters, and yeah, it's always a tough process kind of narrowing them down. But I love that advice about making the lists and the different categories just to sort of think about it rationally and yeah, get all those key people that you want. So good. So can you tell us a bit about the big day, how it all went down, any highlights or favorite moments?
It was honestly just so beautiful. We just adored it. And even though it's only been a few months, we just still think back on it with such fond memories. And I think one of the key moments that we both think about is when we were having dinner and we just took a moment and we just stopped and looked at each other and looked all around, and you just see all your people in one place and think, oh my goodness, they've come here just for us to celebrate us. And it was just so beautiful. I think that really surprised me, the kind of the deep emotion that I would feel just from having all those people closest to you in one room, because it's so rare, and so that was really special. The whole day just went off so amazing. There's nothing really that I would change from the morning of. It was just so calm and peaceful. We had the most incredible team there. Robin Munro did all our hair, and Becca Stevens did all our makeup, and they were just incredible. They just made the whole morning fun, easy, relaxed. And then James and I actually had a first look, which was really nice. I think we just decided we'd get some of those photos out of the way so we could spend more time with family, during the cocktail hour later in the day. And also, it was really nice just to have that moment together before the day. I think people kind of said, oh, do you really want to first look, because you won't get that aisle moment. And I just knew that, like, I'd get that aisle moment. Definitely, I wear my heart on my sleeve. So I knew it would be tears. I think James actually had more than me. Um, and so, yeah, it was a really nice moment just to have that time before everyone was there. And then the whole wedding was just bliss. The flowers were just amazing. Naomi just created, at Leaf and Honey, created the most glorious flowers, all my sort of soft romantic colours. The venues were beautiful. People had such a fab day. And I just think I'd really been so careful on planning everything to the detail. so that on the day I didn't have to sweat about those small things, and it really made a difference. So yeah, I was so relaxed. I was in full extrovert mode, having all my people in one room, and yeah, it was just so lovely. And so I think, yeah, the ceremony was beautiful. The speeches were just hilarious. Like James's two brothers just absolutely nailed them. My maid of honor was just so divine, and yeah, the whole day just went off such a hoot, which was so fun. And probably one of my favorite moments as well was we love being on a dance floor, and so we really wanted that to just go off like a hoot. And so I have a group of probably about 12 girls who just are there until the last song at any event. And so I chatted to all of them, made sure their favourite songs were in the playlist, and then that they would be entering that dance floor with 200% energy. And so, yeah, it was really important to us that we had a really fun dance. And we knew that to make that happen, we had to kickstart it, that we couldn't just have a first dance that was kind of that side shuffle, side to side. That we needed to bring that full energy. And we are not dancers by any means, but we decided to have some dance lessons before. And it was so fun. We actually did a mashup of songs. So we did like a beautiful waltz to 1,000 Years of Twilight. So just real classic, probably your top three first wedding dance songs. And then we mashed it up with 24 Karat Magic by Bruno Mars. And so I think just having that element of surprise, like we are the last persons that you would think would be doing some sort of hip hop dance, but we just went from this beautiful waltz, only two people in the audience knew what we were doing, and then it just like full cut to this like us trying to scramble through a Bruno Mars hip hop dance that had been choreographed. But the crowd just went wild, and I think it just really made the whole evening. People still talk about it, and yeah, it was so fun. So I think if you can add an element of surprise to your wedding, just like get your guests laughing and shocked, I would highly recommend, because yeah, it was so fun.
So good. I love that. Sounds like such an incredible day, all those moments. And yeah, that's a cool one. Think about how you can surprise people. It's great advice. And what did you find hardest about the wedding planning process? Is there anything you look back on and regret or would do a bit differently?
Yeah, I think there's nothing that major that we would regret. We really, for me, although it's only one day, your wedding day, it was really, really important to me. I think it's a beautiful moment in time that celebrates like everything that it took to get to that moment. And then it's the start of a beautiful new journey. And so we really tried to do things like, okay, this is my dream. Um, and I didn't want to live in regret. So I often thought, okay, what would I do? Right, if I'm not going to have a regret, what am I going to do for every aspect? And so we don't really. The only thing I do regret was we had what is it, the arms of guard of honor, when you walk out at the end of the reception. So everyone put their hands up and we walked through this big tunnel, and it kind of just quickly happened. And then we left the venue, and I woke up in the next morning and thought, oh my goodness, I never said goodbye to my bridesmaids. And one had flown from Canada and I wouldn't see her again. And so I was so gutted. We stayed in Auckland City that night and I managed to see them in the morning. But I think that's probably my biggest regret, is not like saying bye properly to the bridal party before. I mean, it wasn't a big deal at all. They weren't phased, but yeah, I wish I'd done that. And in terms of planning, I think it's full on. Like planning a wedding is a lot of work, and it's definitely like I adore planning events. I love it. I think it's something that I've been gifted, but it was actually a lot more than I thought. All those little details, you're doing a lot of people logistics and just making sure that everyone knows what they're doing, where they have to go, at what time, and feeling valued. And so there's actually a lot more that goes into it than you realize. And so I think probably my greatest challenge, which has led me to creating this new business, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, was I really just wanted, to plan it myself because I do enjoy planning, but I just couldn't find like a space that just had all your checklists, all your, you know, timelines, different things. Like, how do I tell my hairdresser exactly what I like, what I don't, email templates, like just all those things that take quite a lot of time. How to, a spreadsheet that like for all the drivers that are driving people so they know when to pick up the bridal party, where, whatnot, would have just been really, really helpful. So I think that was probably my biggest challenge was going, oh my gosh, where do I even start? And how do I make this process as smooth as possible by having really good processes and really good systems in place. But we got there and I absolutely loved it. And yeah, would do it 100 times again if James let me.
Love that and excited to talk about your business soon. But yeah, really interesting to hear about that process, how you found it. And yeah, if you're happy to talk a bit about budget, how did you find that whole process? Did it surprise you how much weddings cost? Yeah, how did that go?
So in terms of budget, we had kind of a ballpark figure of what we would be working with, just based on kind of how much we knew we had to work with. And so I think that's really important is sit down with your partner and have a really good conversation about like, okay, how much money are we going to put towards this? Is anyone else contributing? Do we need to wait a couple of years to get married so we can save? And I actually don't know the figure, the final figure, because leading up to the closest to that time, things just kind of pop up and you're just kind of are paying things. Yeah, it was really important for us to work within that budget. We didn't want to be left with lots of debt because, honestly, you look at photos on Instagram and you're like, oh my gosh, those are my dream florals. If you were to get that quote, like you're talking $20,000, which is just outrageous. um, and so I think it's really important to think about what's important to you, prioritize those things, and then actually ask people that you know if they're happy to talk about it. Listen to this podcast. It was actually amazing. This question has been so helpful, Lydia. Get quotes from different vendors. So when we were deciding whether we did more of a DIY wedding or or a venue that just did everything for us, I actually got a quote from the glass house in Morningside where I'd have to bring in my own caterers and my own furniture and things like that, and I just weighed it all up to see what those prices were. So I think as soon as you put wedding on anything, the price increases. So, like, have those conversations. I think often us females, we've chatted about, weddings with our other like friends and what those sort of costs might be. And often the guys, this might not always be the case, but often they actually just have no idea, that florals will cost thousands of dollars. It's not like your $20 bunch at the supermarket. Um, and so I think, yeah, have those conversations. And then there's so many ways that you can save money, like maybe the florals, you're just going to have one big statement piece, but then on the tables, you just have some greenery that you've picked yourself, or bring your own drinks or do your own table decorations. We sent out paper invites because that was something that was really important to me. I love a something in the post, but that actually is so expensive, like, and so probably by the time we sent out wedding invites and thank you cards in the post, you're talking like over $1,000. And so at least, and so think about those things, digitalize things where you can, save money instead of doing like a little something for people to take home. Like I've been to weddings where it's like, I don't know, a little jar of honey or something. We, on the placing cards, we wrote on the back a beautiful note to every person, which took a long time, I must admit. But it's something that they can cherish and was cheap for us to do. And so, yeah, I think with budget, yeah, just really think about it, see what you can work within, what you want, and get some prices.
Yeah, that's great advice. So many good tips in there and things that, yeah, you can prioritize or save on. And did you guys go on honeymoon straight away? What did planning that look like?
So, like I mentioned, we got married in Auckland, and but we lived down in Lake Hawea. And because we'd recently moved, we actually still had quite a bit of things up in Auckland. So we actually had to do a drive after our wedding from Auckland to Lake Hawea with the last of our belongings. And so our honeymoon looked a bit differently. And I think there's this kind of expectation that you go to Fiji for your wedding, or you go overseas, or you do something quite extravagant. And so when we mentioned to people that our honeymoon would be a couple of nights in Auckland, a few in Wellington, and a few in Christchurch, people kind of questioned like, "Oh, is that your honeymoon?" And I was quite surprised because like that was what we wanted to do. We had actually travelled for 4 months the year before. It's a big energy and cost planning a wedding, so to then go overseas is like quite a big deal. And funnily enough, we were actually so exhausted after the wedding. We were on this massive high leading up, and then we crashed. That we were so grateful that we didn't spend thousands of dollars going overseas. So yeah, so that was our honeymoon. It was absolutely magic. Um, in Auckland, it was funny. My expectations that we would wine and dine all around there. So I just had like all these beautiful dresses, and I only had high heeled shoes packed. And we were so tired. We literally just walked up the road to like the Thai place for dinner and coffee across the road. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Like you could be quite exhausted. And then I adore Wellington City. I think they have the best food in the country. And so it was great. Like our honeymoon was just a week of eating out, reading, enjoying time together, and just like reliving all those beautiful moments of the day. So yeah, maybe on time we'll go overseas and do something and call it another honeymoon. But I'm so happy calling our few days here, and a honeymoon. And yeah, we wouldn't change it for the world.
Sounds dreamy, just a fun road trip. And yeah, it's more about like you two being together and just having that time, just the two of you. I think it's yeah, it doesn't have to be this big glamorous thing or jetting straight off to Europe or something. Like often you will just
Totally.
want to keep it local and chill. So love that. Were there any helpful websites, apps, different resources that helped you during the process? We're going to talk about something amazing that you've made for it. But yeah, how was that during your planning process? Was there anything you used?
I think visually, um, obviously, just adore Pinterest and your Instagrams, which I think are really helpful because, especially Instagram, you find vendors through looking. I knew I wanted Danelle, we'd already booked her in. And so I would just look at other weddings that Danelle had photographed in Auckland. And then I would see, oh, who did that here? Who did that makeup? Who was the florist? And then you kind of end up on a bit of a rabbit hole. But it is a really good way just to try and find vendors of a similar vibe and that have worked together, I think is often quite important. I definitely believe you can just turn up and work with a new florist, but it is really nice if they have that. They've worked together before. There's that like ease. They get along. It just makes for a really fun, easy day. And so, yeah, so those were kind of the main things that I used. And then people definitely just asking friends that had already got married, what did you do? How did you do this? And that was really helpful because you got real advice of being like, oh, I wish, or just ask, your friends that have been married, what do you wish that you had done? Like, what's your biggest regret? And they just tell you, and it will just be little things like, we forgot to have someone push play for the music as we walked into our reception. Like, it could be little things, or it could be big things like, oh my gosh, actually have a hair and makeup trial. And so all those sorts of things were really helpful. And then along with friends, probably the next best way I got help was actually asking the vendors. So I just asked every vendor. I mean, they're doing weddings every weekend or multiple. They're experts in the field and they've seen weddings go really well and they've also seen disasters. So I just asked every vendor, how do you work best? What would you like to see happen? And how can we support that? And is there any advice that you'd give to help it run smoothly? Because I think like there's no point someone like me who can hardly take a photo on an iPhone well, then trying to tell Janelle, who's the expert, like, oh, can you make sure that you take photos of this and that? Like You want them to be in their full creative element and enjoying it. And I think that actually worked really well because it meant that like the florist could go, in this venue space, this is these flowers would work well, and things that I would have never probably thought of. So I think, yeah, probably my biggest advice is ask your vendors and ask people you know, um, and they're gold. They really are.
Yeah, amazing. That's such great advice. And yeah, your vendors and your friends that are recently married want to help you and
Mm.
have such great advice and experience. So, definitely a key one to draw on for sure. And what is married life like now? Do you feel like you got any of those post wedding blues?
It really is magic. And I think people say, like, does it feel any different? And in some ways it doesn't. It kind of feels the same. But and also there's just like this deeper sense of commitment and that you're in this together, all the ebbs and flows in life, like you're doing it together from now. And so I think that's um really, really fantastic. And I think just holding on to actually a beautiful couple we know who've been married for over 30 years, in their wedding card to us they wrote, what did they say? They said, stay fierce, loyal, and communicate with all your might. And that's just kind of been like the tagline around the house now. And I think it's a beautiful, beautiful thing because there are, highs and lows of any marriage. So, but at the moment, yeah, it really is wonderful. And it's so fun to look back on the day that we did have.
Oh, so good. Love that. Amazing. Is there anything else you want to add about your own wedding that experience, or we'll go on to chatting about don't sweat the small stuff?
I mean, I could give you thousands of tips probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think a few things just briefly would be leading up to your wedding is a big job. And when you're working as well, it means you're doing things in the evenings and the weekends, and it can be quite a lot. And I'm actually a physiotherapist by trade. And so health is really important leading up to your wedding. Like the last thing you want is to turn up to your wedding day with like a snotty nose, feeling just exhausted and just shattered. And so I think during that lead up, really focus, like for us, some of the big things we focused on were how can we make this as relaxed as possible and how can we look after our health? So like go and have like prioritize having lots of sleep, take your vitamin C. We like did a full gut health plan to just like make sure that like our immune system was high, that our skin was glowing like outside and in, like nourish yourself with like bone broth, good food, all of those sorts of things. People don't really talk about it, but actually your health leading up to the wedding day is so important. And if you're looking after yourself, you're exercising, you just and sleeping well, you can manage stress better. We all know that because none of us cope well, with an hour or two sleep. So I think, yeah, that's really important. Um, have your hair and makeup trials. I'd recommend a few months prior to your wedding. The reason for that is your hairstylist and makeup artist will give really good advice just how to look after your hair and skin leading up to the day so that they can create magic. I'd been in Southeast Asia for 4 months before my wedding trial, and like my hair, I don't know what happened, but it was just so filthy and like oily, nothing I'd ever experienced before. And I think just the change of water, different shampoos, things like that. And so when I had my hair trial with Robin Munro, who is absolute world class, she just looked at my hair and was like, okay, use the shampoo, do this, and things like that. And it just, and same with Becca, with my makeup, it was like, okay, go and get a dermaplane, it'll make your makeup feel better. Use, these sorts of products, focus on drinking lots of water, things like that. And it just gives you time to like do those things to look after yourself ahead of time. So yeah, I think that would definitely be a top tip. And just remember that your hair and makeup trial will not look like what your hair and makeup will look like on the day. I think that was probably some of the best advice girlfriends gave to me because I like my hair and makeup trials were great, but I wasn't like, oh my gosh, that's my dream hair and makeup. And it's because they're just trying to work out like how your skin goes, how your hair falls. Robin said to me, actually, Annie, you'd be better to go and have a haircut a month before your wedding and things like that. And so know that those are trials. It's them learning about you, how you work, what you want. And on the day, it'll be 100 times better. Like my hair and makeup was just a dream. And so, yeah, that would definitely be a high priority, is just get that booked in a few months before your wedding and do it on like a night you're going to have a date night. Or we were going to a wedding, so I had my hair trial that day, so then I didn't have to think about my hair. So those sorts of things, I think, ask how your vendors work best, and create buffer time in your schedule, because things will run late. Like I had problems with my bridal underwear, like stick-on bras weren't like working. So like that meant that like mum was cutting like all the wrinkly parts of the stick-out bra off, and I was running 20 minutes late. But at least I'd buffered in my timeline. Just have buffer time. So like even just block out 15 minutes of buffer here, and then it just means you're not stressed on the day, so that you are relaxed. And get your vendors to look over your run sheet. Like I got Danelle too, and the Northern Club, because they know what works, and like even like my makeup artist, she looked at the run sheet and she was like, yep, that's perfect. And then as we got closer to the time, she said to me, she was like, Annie, I just did a wedding last weekend when they wanted me to start at 6 a.m. like you do, but it was pitch black. So outside, so they had no natural light to do the makeup. So it was like, okay, great, let's change that. Let's start at 7 a.m. And so think about those things, ask your vendors, and just, yeah, they're the experts and they will know way more than you know. And trust them in that process. Would be, yeah, I would definitely highly recommend that. And then probably my last two pieces of advice were, you'll know this as a wedding photographer, Lydia, it's always nice to photograph a clean space. When you're getting ready in the morning and all the girls are there, it's chaos. There's stuff, there's bags. Like, get rid of the shopping bags, create some like clear spaces. Don't let people put like ugly water bottles right near where you're getting your hair and makeup done, because if you don't want that in the photos, it's those little things, and it's probably the photographer's daughter and me coming out, but those little things matter. And you don't want to be looking back at this photo of you all dressed beautifully in your wedding gown with your bridesmaids there, and then there's like this bright yellow pack and save bag in the corner, and like, sure, you photographers are incredible, you can Photoshop whatnot, but like make everyone's job easier. And so it was really great. My maid of honor is a fellow clean freak. And so she just went around in the morning and she was like moving like the newspaper out of the way and things like that. So that was really, really helpful. And then my other piece of advice was, you get a lot of emails. Like, it's crazy how many comms you have with all your vendors, all your different people. And so we actually created a separate email address. And that was really helpful because it meant they weren't lost in amongst all your other things. You could both access it, and it just kept everything tidy. So I think, yeah, the more you can do to keep your emails tidy, your spaces tidy, your processes clean, just the less stress it is, and the more you'll look back on everything and be like, oh my gosh, that just ran amazing. Like, that is literally what we think. We're like, we wouldn't change anything. So yeah, those are a few of many.
Amazing. So much great advice in there. I hope everyone's taking notes. Yeah, I've touched on a few things. I think the health aspect is so important and something that people actually end up neglecting in their process, and they get quite stressed out or busy with all these other things, and then they're not thinking about that themselves. I've definitely photographed a few weddings where the bride has like lost her voice or something just from
Yeah,
all the
totally.
chaos leading up to it. So yeah, trying to get enough sleep and looking after yourself, so important. And yeah, I love what you say about cleaning your space in the morning, makes our jobs so much easier, and assign your clean freak friend to doing that. I love it.
Totally. Yeah.
And
They'll love
yeah,
it.
I'm definitely have gone around and, hidden piles of clothes under beds or moved things around before just to get a cleaner photo. But yeah, super helpful if you're onto that in the morning. Amazing. So much wisdom there. So you have taken all this wisdom, everything you've learned, and created an amazing new business. Can you tell me firstly a bit about you and your background, and then a kind of overview, what you do, what kind of sparked the idea, and what is don't sweat the small stuff.
So, as I mentioned, I'm a physiotherapist by trade. I'm not working clinically at the moment as such, but I have a few businesses on the go in that space. And I've just always loved events and planning ever since I think I was about 11 years old, and I was put in a class at school where we had to do some like extracurricular sort of activities, things that I didn't really enjoy. And I just remember saying to my teacher, "Oh, I don't really love this." And he said, "Well, why don't you organize the ski trip for our class this year?" And so I organized the ski trip. I was about 11 years old, did all the parent teacher, forms, things like that, all the logistics, and just adored it. And then the school kept the trip going for years after. So I think organising events I've always adored. I've done quite a bit of work in the charity spaces, organising charity events and fundraisers and things like that, where there's lots of moving parts. You've got lots of people on board. Again, you want everyone to feel valued, have a good time, but you've got a purpose to pull off an event. And so for me, coming into the wedding planning, I was just so excited because I adore a spreadsheet. I love it. I love checklists. And so for me, I just thought, great, this is going to be relatively easy. I'd helped plenty of friends organize their weddings before, and I'd done quite a bit of wedding coordinating as well for friends as well. So like on the day, the go-to person, and that person that just kind of is queen of the logistics, making sure everyone's in the right place, the big group photos, making sure Auntie Rosie is like not hidden behind Uncle Mark and like, those sorts of things. So I think I'd loved that. And so leading up to the wedding, I just really loved the process and didn't think much of it. I just thought it's another event in my book. And then after the wedding, like, or on the day, everyone was just saying, Annie, like, I hated planning our wedding, or like, oh my gosh, you should be digitalizing all your planning packages because in all the speeches they were going on about Annie's timetables and Annie's spreadsheets. So actually, after our wedding, I was just kind of thinking about it, and I was like, I wonder if I could digitalize kind of all like a full planning package for the person that doesn't want to have a wedding planner. Either they can't afford it or they just want to have that, do it themselves. But it just gives them that guide that I knew that I was looking for, and it was harder. And so what I did was just like thought about it, brainstormed, and I was like, I think I could do this because it's something I adore, and a lot of people find so hard. So why not share what I've already got? And so while I love all the logistics and I can do all the things, and I know what looks beautiful, I'm not very good at creating it. And so I chatted to one of my beautiful friends, Sophie, who runs a design studio, Tomiko Studios, who is just incredible. We've been friends for a long time. And as teenagers, we would talk about our dream weddings. I was actually a bridesmaid for her years ago. And I just said to her, this is my idea. Do you want to make my idea look good? And so she was like, oh my gosh, absolutely. So we are creating a package that is just the ultimate planning package that has everything from checklists to and timelines that also are like, okay, right, here's for your car drivers, a music timeline so you know exactly who is pushing play on that playlist, or the musicians, a contact list with everyone's names, numbers, how to talk to your vendors about what you want and what you don't. I think one of the best pieces of advice Robin Munro, my hairstylist, told me was, don't just give me what you like, tell me what you don't like. And so, often people just will give a photo they found on Pinterest of like the front of someone's makeup or the back of someone's hair, and be like, I want a low bun. But there are thousands of low buns. So being able to have like already a template that you can just plug your pictures in and go, I like this, don't like this. And that just guides you through that process, almost like an older sibling or a mum that's just like been there, done that, guiding you through, but also is really practical because it's all well and good to have someone telling you, like, do this, do that. But then you're like, oh my gosh, how do I actually put this into a spreadsheet? Or how do I put this into a checklist? So yeah, so that's what we've created, and that's why.
Amazing. That sounds like such an incredible resource, and just having that all as like a one-stop shop for couples is going to be so, so helpful. So I'm excited to share this and for more people to be able to use it, and yeah, just glean from all that wisdom and knowledge that you have. So you touched on it a little bit, but yeah, can you talk a bit about the type of person that this might be helpful for in their wedding planning?
So, like I mentioned, if you want to plan your own wedding, but you just need some guidance, then this is absolutely for you. So, if you just want, like, our day was just so calm and relaxed and we didn't have to sweat the small things because they'd been really planned really well. So, if you just want a template that's got everything there that's able to guide you through. Even if you're good at planning, like I would class myself as quite good at planning and organizing events, but just having a template there already done would have just been so much easier. And you can adapt it. Every wedding's different. So we're not saying that this is the way to do things, this is fixed. It's going to have lots of movements, so you can make it yours, but it's going to have things filled out as examples and then guidance on how you could create things. Or if you literally look at a wedding and you're like, oh my gosh, I just don't know how I am ever going to do this. Maybe we just elope, like, forget it, should we even get married? Then this is absolutely for you because it's going to make, you can get your sister in laws, your sisters on board, your mum, all to go, right, here's the template, let's do it together. And so we want to be able to create something that makes it less stressful for you and less stressful for the people around you because they're so invested in your wedding that if you're stressed, they're going to be stressed. And that's when it's just a bit of a recipe for disaster. So essentially, it's, yeah, for anyone that wants to feel less stressed, more calm, and just have really good systems in place so that everyone knows what they're doing on the day, feels relaxed, and you just get to pull off the dreamiest day with all the things that you want.
So, so good. I think, yeah, it's going to be so helpful. And yeah, especially like most people who've never planned a wedding before when they get engaged
Totally.
and they're just like, where do I start? So, yeah, just even having that as a starting point, the lists and templates, everything, so helpful.
Just to make it really clear, this doesn't replace the people, like the incredible vendors that are your full package wedding planners. So, this is something that you just download, you can do yourself, and it helps guide you through the process. But yeah, all the wedding planners out there who are doing the full packages of planning, and like, you are incredible. This isn't like, we want to make your day better, so if people can try and get things that they want on paper so that you can then take their wedding to the next level, then that's what we also want. And same with the on-day coordinators. Sometimes those people come on a month before the wedding to start like helping, or sometimes they're just on the day. So again, we're not replacing them, we're just working with them to try and make their job a bit easier.
Yeah, that's super helpful. I think even if you were just kind of getting someone for on the day coordination, having used those like templates and resources and help with creating that timeline to hand over to them would be super helpful as well. So, yeah, complementary services, I think they can
Totally,
all
that's the
work
dream.
well together. Yeah. And yeah, again, you've given so much amazing advice, but yeah, do you have any other tips for people what they can do to avoid the stress during wedding planning and yeah, enjoy that process a bit more?
Yeah, get lots of sleep. And if you're finding that a hard one, then definitely read, I think his name's Matthew Walker, his book Why We Sleep, and it will just transform your life and you will never not want to get good sleep again. um, I think also the week before your wedding, I actually in my timeline, I when I first started planning the 2 months before the wedding, I put in big bold writing above, do as little as possible, relax as much as possible. And that was really helpful because what it did is when I went to go, okay, when should I do this? It thought, actually, no, I'm not going to fit it into those 8 weeks before the wedding because that will fill. There is always last minute things to do. You know, you'll be running around the week before picking up different things. So try and avoid filling those things with things that you could have actually done earlier. And then that week before, same with that week before, like we put in our calendar quite early on, we had a week schedule of like a coffee date every morning and things like that. And sometimes those coffee dates didn't happen because we had to run and do something kind of last minute. But what it did do was it allowed space to actually relax, and we almost overscheduled relaxing. So that then when things came in, we would still feel less stress. So I think that was really important. And on those weeks leading up, like do things, even if it means your date nights are like a nice walk at a local park. We did quite a lot of hot and cold. So in the sauna, so down the road from us in Lake Hawea is the secret sauna, which is, if you're ever in the area, is a must. It's absolutely magical. And just being in a sauna and then being in cold water, hot and cold, it does like miraculous things for your nervous systems. It helps calm you down. We'd go in the evening, so we'd sleep like babies and things like that. So really trying to focus on those things. We took Be Pure Immuno Action, which is some like vitamins, which just are like full burst of like all your like gingers and turmerics and all those things, just to try and build the immune system. Yeah, just think every time you put something in to your calendar, you know, you're looking at, okay, what's this month going to look, what's this week? Also think, what can I do this week to look after myself, our relationship, because there's a lot going on. So like you really want to nurture that moment of being engaged and look after your health and just do as much as you can to try and keep the balance and have that as a priority so that when you do get overwhelmed, you know what to fall on of, oh, we haven't really done anything for ourselves this week. And I think, yeah, one of my favorite quotes is when, what do they say? It says, you should sit in meditation for 20 minutes a day. Unless you're super busy, then you should sit in meditation for 1 hour. And I think it's a great, you know, often we don't have necessarily that time, but it's a good reminder that when our cup fills more with like planning and all of those things, the more we need to prioritize looking after yourself. So I think, yeah, get that sleep into you, eat well, exercise, and just like make moments for slow mornings.
Such great advice. Yeah, so much in there. I love that. Being intentional about that self care time and taking care of your relationship as well, and even like blocking it out, putting it in the calendar. So, yeah, it actually happens and you don't get too overwhelmed, which is so easy to do. But yeah, amazing advice there. And a bit more of a fun question. Is there any kind of trends that you've noticed in the wedding industry lately or things you'd like to see yeah, coming up?
Absolutely. I think my favorite thing about weddings is that they're just so personalized. You know, it really is a beautiful reflection of the couple and what's important to them. And that's so evident in the vibe that's created and how people feel on the day. So I think one trend that I'm loving seeing at the moment is just so like people are just going, although my wedding looked relatively traditional, quite timeless, classic, that's because that's what I wanted it to be like. That's not what my mum or someone else wanted it, but that's what I wanted. And so I love seeing weddings like that where it's like, oh my gosh, they just have chosen exactly what they wanted. Or at the moment, we're really seeing the bright colors come through, you know, the rainbow bridesmaids, or no bridal party, or people going off and eloping and coming back for a big party at like a local bar. or just like a really intimate backyard wedding. And so I think what I'm really loving at the moment is there's just so much diversity within weddings, and there's definitely trends. Like at the moment we are seeing more like colourful and like those sort of playful tones within your florals and your colours. But I think just like look at what other people are doing if you want, but just remember that this is your big day. A trend is a trend. You're going to look back on it forever. So, like, go wild, do what you want. If you want those big, beautiful wedding sleeves that we're seeing kind of in those vintage style dresses at the moment, do it. If you don't even want to wear a white dress, if you want to wear more of like a light shade pink dress or something really floral, or I know like Olivia Cashmore does some beautiful, like almost suited short dresses. Then like do that, do what you want. And I think so. Yeah, that's probably the trend I'm loving is just seeing people being completely and utterly themselves, and that reflecting in their big day.
So good. That's the best way to go about it, I think. Just think about what really represents you as a couple, what you love,
Mm,
and go for it. Don't try and play safe.
totally.
Amazing. It's been so lovely to chat to you today. Can you tell us where people can find you, follow along with Don't Sweat the Small Stuff?
So you can follow us on all social media. Don't sweat the small stuff. I know it will be probably tagged on the Kiwi Wedding podcast, and so you can find us through there. And we were also just finalizing our free download. So you can just pop onto our website and download that for free. And that's going to have 10 top tips from a whole lot of different vendors that they wish you knew. So so Robin Munro, our incredible bridal hairstylist, she's going to have 10 things she wishes that every bride knew. She's actually just partnered with a few other makeup and hair artists, including Alex Penton, to create Penton and Co, which is going to be like Auckland's top tier luxury hair and makeup. Oh my gosh, like I would get married again to have them on my team. So like they have written 10 things that they wish that you guys knew. We're going to have that across all vendors, whether that's a photographer, a florist, a marquee brand, an event planning company. So yeah, if you're just at the beginning of your wedding or at any stage of your wedding planning, head over to our website that you can find through all our socials, and hopefully that can kickstart you on what is the most beautiful journey, and it really can be relaxing. If you plan all the small stuff well, then you don't have to sweat the stuff on the big day.
So good. That is going to be an amazing resource for people. So make sure you jump over and download that, and we'll definitely tag everything in the show notes and Instagram, and then your wedding vendors as well. So amazing. I can't wait to share this. I know people are going to get a lot out of this episode. So thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much, Lydia, for having me. It's been an absolute joy.